Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're watching and hearing this, good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Pitch Side podcast. Like, share and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Of course, comment on the YouTube version of this episode of what you think of yesterday's action. And of course, follow us on social media, on Instagram at PitchSidePod and on Twitter at SidePSP. Listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Let's get to the business. It was an eventful Saturday, yesterday, of course, and we're going to start from Germany. And it was certainly an entertaining Saturday in Germany, across the Bundesliga, in fact. Let's get quickly to the results, of course, before talking about the big point from that day in the Bundesliga, which is the Bayern-Leipzig game. In the start of the day, of course, Arminia Bielefeld defeated Mainz 2-1. FC Köln drawn against Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg squandered a lead early on, of course, to find themselves only trailing 2-1 at half-time before, of course, but the lead for Köln didn't last long after the turn of the half. Of course, 2 minutes into the second half, Wout Weghorst, I think one of the best strikers in the Bundesliga, in my opinion, really, scored the equaliser, and that was that for the game. 2-2 between Köln and Wolfsburg. Eintracht Frankfurt, I think, didn't get the result they deserved. They only got a 1-1 draw against Borussia Dortmund in a game that I thought they were better in. They were the better side. They were the more coherent side. Dortmund, it shows that they miss in Haaland, really. Missing Haaland didn't give them a focal point, didn't give them a meaning for most of their attacks, of course, but eventually another talent, of course, of theirs, Giovanni Reina, sealed a draw with a beautiful strike late on in the second half. Freiburg forced Borussia Mönchengladbach to accept the point. Mönchengladbach, of course, squandering an early lead to find themselves trailing as well to 1, only, of course, for Alassane Player to save them later on in the early on, in the second half, in the 50th minute, to gain the 2 points of the game. Now we talk, of course, such on Friday as well. Hertha Berlin defeated Union Berlin 3-1 in the derby. Now let's get to the bigger point of the Bundesliga, of course, the Bayern Munich RB Leipzig game, and this game had a lot of expectation heading into it. Of course, it had the fact that Bayern Munich were, pretty much rested, of course, nothing to think about, really, having already qualified for the Champions League, guaranteed a top spot in their group. They had nothing to worry about. The other side, though, in this game, RB Leipzig, had all to play for. They are thinking about competing in the Bundesliga, of course. This match was so important for them. They know that they had to get something out of Bayern in order to keep the momentum going and to keep themselves in the race for the Bundesliga. And, of course, in the back of their minds, there was the game against Manchester United in the Champions League on Tuesday as well, which is another crucial game. RB Leipzig entered this game with a 4-3-3, of course. Unusual from Julian Nagelsmann, I would say. He plays more of a 4-2-3-1, sometimes a 3-4-3. He's not really a 4-3-3 guy. I mean, from a guy who is not considered a classic manager, this was a pretty classic move from him. Starting, of course, with Haidara, Adams and Sabitzer, playing with Forsberg up front, more as a false 9, was something I didn't expect, really, but also when he scored, the guy scored the third goal, so it worked quite well, I think. Kluivert and Nkunku were flanking him on the wings. For Bayern, it was the usual deal, a 4-2-3-1, but of course the absences that they still have, of course the injuries that they still have. Crucially, I think Kimmich's injury in the midfield is still showing its effect, really, because Bayern Munich didn't command the midfield enough. Leipzig entered strong, they pressed Bayern high, really. Surprisingly started strong, because you expect Bayern at the Allianz Arena to play this strong game, to play as, the pressing team. But Leipzig started strong, started in the 15 minutes First 15 minutes of the game, really, they started pressing high, they started playing really quickly. Bayern were not playing a high line, really, at the in the first 15 minutes or so, but once they started playing with such high line, once they thought they got more into the game, Leipzig, first time they get behind that high line, Christopher Nkunku, I think a rare mistimed run out of the goal from Manuel Neuer gave Nkunku all the advantage he needs, slight touch, get it past him, and slots it into the net for a 1-0 lead. From there, I think the tone should have been set that Bayern would have been the panicking team that would look for the equaliser, while Leipzig are going to be the calm side that is going to be, managing the game from then onwards. And then it was, of course, another blow for Bayern as Javi Martinez went injured only 25 minutes into the game, but it was a blessing in disguise. Jamal Musiala, I won't stress how good of a prospect Jamal Musiala is. He's a great prospect for Bayern Munich. He is a player that should be protected and must be protected, I think, from the Bayern Munich board if they want to get, if you want to continue the domination, if they want to continue to have the best squad in Europe for quite some time. Jamal Musiala comes on from the pitch 5 minutes, and 5 minutes into his stint on the pitch, at the half an hour mark exactly, he turns around and one of a beautiful finish into the net of Gulacsi, making it 1-1. From there, Bayern took command of the game, of course. That's what normally Bayern do, and they score a goal, really. They take the game by the scruff of the neck. They add the second goal via a brilliant finish from Thomas Müller after a superb pass behind the lines from Kingsley Coman, from a very quick movement between him and Jamal Musiala, in fact, at the 34th minute. Bayern thought they had the lead, they thought they would control the game, but same goal from the other side, a copycat goal. Amadou Haidara gives the same pass that Koeman gave to Müller to Justin Kluivert, who scores his 5th goal for Leipzig he scores his 5th goal for Leipzig overall, I think, in all competitions, the 3rd in the Bundesliga, only 2 minutes after Bayern's 2nd, which gave Leipzig the lifeline, and the first half ended 2-2. In the second half, we thought that the game would stall a little bit. We thought that both teams are going to be starting making changes, managing the game forward, but no. Bayern Munich, again, caught this time on the cross, opening space. Forsberg finally showing why he played as a false 9, of course, completely unmarked inside the box. He makes it 3-2 for Leipzig, and from there, it was a game of chess, of course, between Julian Nagelsmann and Hansi Flick, who made all his moves that you would expect. And Julian Nagelsmann made some really interesting changes. He took out Forsberg for Poulsen. He took out Justin Kluivert for Orban. Later on, of course, he took on Dani Olmo for Mukiele, Campbell for Sabitzer. It was a mix between attacking and defending, of course, but after the goal, pretty much, it was all Bayern, especially after 60 minutes. It was Bayern all along, and they tried and tried and tried. Lewandowski, I think, was absent in the game, didn't do much, but when you have Thomas Müller, really, you don't need to worry. Thomas Müller scoring the 3rd. A copycat as well from the 3rd goal for Leipzig, not completely unmarked really, but getting ahead of the defenders with a beautiful cross from Kingsley Coman, who doubled the assists on the day to make it 3-3. From there, I think that finally the game stalled, finally the game really calmed down, and both teams seemed accepting of a draw at the end. I think, in my opinion, probably more so for Leipzig, who for all the defensive praise that we have been given to them over the last couple of weeks and months as well, they didn't look particularly sharp defensively at certain points. They certainly looked lacking concentration. The same could be said for Bayern as well, who will not take this result kindly, really. Leipzig coming at home, scoring 3 past them. And Bayern not necessarily strongest defense. It's a shame, really, that there are 7 teams in the Bundesliga who conceded less goals than Bayern. Bayern are already 16 goals conceded. Leipzig, by the way, still the strongest defense, in the Bundesliga. Bayern has still the strongest attack with 34 goals. This draw, I think, will give the chance to keep the title race alive, finally. The title race has to still going on, really, in Germany, because I'm a Bayern fan, but I'm fed up, really, with Bayern being not motivated for the most of the season in the Bundesliga, guaranteeing the title pretty much since the winter. So this draw is not going to change a lot at the top of the table. Bayern Munich still first, 23 points, 21 points for Leipzig. The 2-point gap is still there for Dortmund. They get slightly behind Bayern, but still in the race, pretty much 19 points. It's a big chance for Leverkusen, playing, of course, on Sunday, as they have the chance to climb up to second, behind Bayern Munich. Maybe they would be a part of that title race. Of course, they have, I think, quite an easy game. Unfortunately, it became an easy game when you talk about games against Schalke in the Bundesliga. Of course, Augsburg as well face Hoffenheim, while Werder Bremen face Stuttgart as well. Augsburg-Hoffenheim on Monday, and Werder Bremen faces Stuttgart. That is on Sunday as well. Moving on from Germany to Spain, another eventful league yesterday. And it was eventful for a whole host of reasons, of course. Let's talk about the results pretty quickly as well. On Friday, Atletico Bilbao lost Celta Vigo 2-0. Surprising result, I would say, especially when you consider that the game was at the San Mamés. Levante defeated Getafe 3-0. Getafe find themselves 9 men down. They had 2 red cards during the game. Levante, of course, a 3-0 victory that elevates them to 17th, finally, out of the slumps of the relegation zone, of course, while Getafe keep a warm spot, I think, in 13, but not so much far from the danger zone. Sevilla, Real Madrid, the first big point, I think, from Spain, really. A game where we all thought, not we all thought, really, it is pretty much the game that Zidane, I think, depends on to start the week properly, because, as we mentioned in the podcast yesterday, and we mentioned through and through, I think, this is the most crucial week for Zidane's season. This one, a first ever trilogy, a first ever big trilogy that is awaiting Zidane, a Mönchengladbach Champions League game, and then, of course, the Atletico Madrid derby later on in the week. Real Madrid started the game really well, I think. This was one of the most surreal performances that you can see from Real Madrid, considering the standards they set for themselves this season. They started well. They started pressing high, of course, giving Rodrigo start with Vinicius Jr. and Benzema front, of course, for the absence of Eden Hazard and Luka Jovic. The options in the midfield were really tight. I think Modric, Casemiro and Kroos were about as the only options you can have in the midfield for Real Madrid, against a Sevilla side that, coming on from a 4-0 loss against Chelsea, we thought, okay, they're playing the second side, maybe with the first teamers they would have a better performance. They started bad. Real Madrid started pressing really high in the first 10 minutes, not showing much of a chance, but really putting Sevilla into their zone, cornering Sevilla into their 18-yard box for the first 10 minutes. A mistake from Bono in the early goings almost cost him. Keep an eye on that, because that will haunt him later. Then, of course, after 15 minutes, Sevilla sort of took the game forward, sort of started moving up the pitch, of course, trying to get into the 18-yard box of Real Madrid, but no bite, really. In fact, the most dangerous chance of the first half was Real Madrid's, as Karim Benzema almost scored, only for Yassine Bono to parry it into a corner. In the second half, the first half ended, of course, goalless. The second half, Sevilla coming in straight off the bat, pressing and playing really bad at putting Real Madrid under the sword, as Real Madrid sat deep into their box, waiting for the space, waiting for the counter, of course. And in the 55th minute, against the run of play, really, Real Madrid getting and catching Sevilla behind the fullbacks, which was a very weak point in the first half, catching Sevilla the space behind the fullbacks. Ferland Mendy with a low cross that Vinicius Jr. had the slenderest of touches, which was, I think, enough to deflect it off Yassine Bounou, the goalkeeper, and into the net for a horrendous, I think, mistake from the goalkeeper. Then, of course, Sevilla were all over Real Madrid's 18-yard box, and I'm surprised really when I look at the stats of the game and look at the summary of the game that Zinedine Zidane only made one change at the game. I don't know if this is a sign that he trusts his team's stamina, or maybe the fact that he knows he doesn't have a lot of options and he knows that this is the best that he could have. Because you're looking at the Real Madrid's bench probably. He had, Sensio, Isco, Odegaard, Militao returning, Odriozola. Not much of options, I think, defensively to solidify the midfield. If he takes out, for example, Casemiro, he will not have any surprise, any surprise factor from the bench to really solidify the midfield. So he stayed with the side that he has. He took off Rodrigo, and he subbed him off for Marco Asensio. And Marco Asensio has, I think, more defensive aspects to him than Rodrigo to support at Lucas Ocampos, particularly from Sevilla, moved on to the left-hand side. And Sevilla created more danger, I think, in the later stages of the second half, but still it was ineffective overall. Real Madrid didn't make a lot of defensive mistakes, which was something that we bashed them for, but didn't make a lot of defensive mistakes this time. Solid defensive performance, clean sheet, which they will take, but they will certainly not going to play a deep defense game against Mönchengladbach, because that is definitely what's not going to happen. They're not going to be playing deep against Mönchengladbach. They will be looking for the win. They will be looking to score early and try to give themselves a head start in that game. Overall, another loss for Sevilla. Another unconvincing performance. 16 points at 6th on the table. Doesn't look good, really. But maybe they will recuperate, maybe they will get the season right on track. For Real Madrid, it's a crucial victory, again, heading into a big week for Zinedine Zidane. 20 points at 3rd on the table. The other side in Madrid made not a quick job, because it was a hard game, really. It took them 56 minutes to start scoring against a Valladolid side who had chances, certainly, and had a tremendous first half to show. For it. They had 8 attempts in the first half, 3 shots on goal, really. They put Atletico Madrid under serious pressure, but eventually Atletico Madrid found their way to scoring. Thomas Lemar opening the score at 56th minute, and from then on, of course, it was all Atletico Madrid until Marcus Llorente, with another Kieran Trippier assist, double assists for Kieran Trippier, scored the second goal at the 72-minute. Quick job, I think, done for Diego Simeone's boys before a crucial game against Salzburg away from home in the Champions League. Starting the week at the top of the table in LaLiga, 26 points for Atletico Madrid. A side that is not going to be seen at the top of the table, really. A side that is not enjoying even being close to the top of the table. Talking about Barcelona here. If you think about I'm talking about Cadiz, you're wrong. Barcelona travelled to Cadiz, travelled to the Estadio Ramón de Carranza, and they had a bad performance. Not a surprise, really. They had a bad performance when you think about it, really. A game where you think Barcelona should have been comfortable getting their first team back, thinking, okay, they defeated Ferencváros, Dinamo Kiev and Osasuna, they defeated them 4-0 and 3-0 and what have you with the second team. What would they do with the first team? They didn't. They had a worse performance. I commend really Cadiz for the defensive aspect of their game that they have, but on the counter, they were really hurting. The first goal, 8 minutes in, Oscar Mingueza, for a weird reason, plays header back for Ter Stegen. Ter Stegen couldn't deal with it, really, and Alvaro Jimenez, right on the goal line, really, just puts the ball into the net. Even if he blows on the ball, it would go inside the net. That's how that's how definite the goal was anyway. 1-0 for Cadiz, the home team. They sit back. They disposed themselves really well. They closed down Barcelona, who insisted on entering from the centre of the defence. And when you have the likes of Busquets on the pitch, really, you could not enter from the centre of the defence. Because you're pulling De Jong, the player who's supposed to be the centre midfielder, who has the solutions normally, you pulled him wide and you forced Busquets into a midfield against a side in Cadiz that played with 4 midfielders in there, four midfielders, that's in the offensive aspect. When the defensive aspect, they became 5. So it was crowded all day long. You will not find solutions. Barcelona had a bad first half, a disappointing first half. Really, couldn't make a lot of chances. Only I think Messi's free kick was like really significant. Only 2 shots on goal, really, with 80% possession in the first half. The second half, Barcelona were much better, with more attempts on goal, more shots on goal, and they equalised. But the equaliser, of course, wasn't their own effort. It was an own goal from Alcala, from Pedro Alcala, Cadiz's defender, in the 57th minute. And we thought, okay, this is Barcelona's game now. Barcelona are going to be taking the game by the scruff of the neck, creating chances, putting Cadiz to the sword, finishing the game really well. But that wasn't what happened. Jordi Alba on a throw, one of the weirdest goals you've ever seen in football, really. When you look at its start, really, you will consider how weird it is. Jordi Alba on a throw, completely free, no player is going to pressure you on throw. He plays the throw so badly that Longley couldn't take it. Alvaro Negredo intercepts it from Longley, continues his run, intercepts it from Ter Stegen, and of course, for good old fun, De Jong slips on the line, gets past him, slots it into the net, 2-1 Cadiz. From there, it was scrambling time, panicking time for Barcelona, as usual. For Ronald Koeman this season, as it seems, he panics, he throws all his dice onto the pitch, getting Trincao for Serginho Dest. In my opinion, Serginho Dest was about the only player who was providing that width you need when the centre of the defence is blocked. He took him out. Miralem Pjanic for Sergio Busquets didn't make a difference, despite the whole chances that they have, despite the fact that they tried and shot, and then there was blocks, and there was, of course, the saves from Ledesma, who was the man of the match deservedly, in my opinion. Jeremias Ledesma, the 27-year-old goalkeeper. And Cadiz could have added the third goal, really. They caught Barcelona 2 or 3 times, clean sweep on the counter, really, and they could have scored a third, but their finishing was lacking some accuracy. Overall, a bad result for Barcelona, a bad display for Barcelona, ineffective, really. And the Champions League form is something different. Even the game against Juventus will not matter now. It's LaLiga that matters now. This is the worst start for Barcelona in years in LaLiga, and they look out of their depth, out of their solutions. Something tells me that when Messi's playing, they're stalling, really. Messi didn't play the way he should. Really, and I'm not going to be blaming him, really. He had, every time he was on the ball, he had 5 players marking him, something like that. But it was ineffective, it was disappointing, and Barcelona need to change their ways sometimes. Cadiz, let's give them some credit, really. They had a tremendous defensive display. They keep on racking the big results against the big guns of the Liga. 18 points, 5th place, defeating Bilbao, defeating Sevilla, defeating Real Madrid, drawing against Atletico Madrid, and now defeating Barcelona. That is quite the resume for Cadiz, the newly promoted side, back to the top of the chain in Spain, of course. On Sunday, the fixtures at La Liga continue, with Granada facing Huesca, Osasuna, Betis, Villarreal, Elche, Alaves, host Real Sociedad, hopefully for Sociedad to get back to the top of the table, 1 point ahead of Atletico Madrid, and on Monday, Eibar host Valencia. Moving on from Spain, of course, to the Premier League. It wasn't a big Saturday in the Premier League, but it had its ups and downs, of course. We mentioned that the Aston Villa-Newcastle game was postponed because of the COVID-19 break. Elsewhere, fans were welcome in the 4 stadiums of this game. Thankfully, I think 2,000 fans, except for the Manchester City-Fulham game, which had no fans. But in Burnley, Everton, West Ham, Man United, and Chelsea Leeds, there were 2,000 fans in each of these games, which is really pleasing to see. Some form of fans, despite not being the loudest of atmospheres, of course. 2,000 fans, and they were disparate and were sparsed all over the pitch, but it was good to see them anyway. Burnley forced Everton into a draw. Burnley had the lead, indeed, 3 minutes in by Brady, and then, of course, it was scrambling time. Everton were the better side by far margin, but they didn't show forward really until Calvert-Lewin scored an equaliser in the 48th minute, 45 plus 3 in the first half, to make it 1-1 from there. Everton tried everything in the book, I think, against a defensive side in Burnley that was really, really, really well closed down compared to the other game against Manchester City, where they took 5-0 on the first gear pretty much for Manchester City. A draw for Everton that will not sit well with their fans really. They're now at 9th. We were talking about a side that had title aspirations, top 4 aspirations. This side now is languishing in the middle of the table at 17th. For Burnley, an important point, albeit still down in the relegation battle, with 1 game, of course, missing. Everton, an interrogation point, really, a question mark over how Everton are going to be bouncing back about their credential for a top 4 finish this season, because they had some results as of late that do not really sit well with their fans in the last 5 games. If you take the last 5 games by isolation, Everton are 15th on the table. Burnley are above them, in fact, in that form, if you take the last 5. In Manchester City, quick dispatching of Fulham, really. It was a less comfortable game than expected when you look at the result, of course, but it is Fulham, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, they got, yes, they have a Champions League game to think about, Manchester City, but clearly not that important. A good win for them, good, crucial win, I think, for them. An easy win, but not comfortable in the end, at least scoreline-wise. Climbing to 5th now, starting to get their way back into the top of the table finally, behind a 4th-placed Manchester rival in Manchester United, who literally their game was a game of two halves against West Ham United. They started the first half really, really bad, conceding a goal, from Thomas Souček on a corner, on a set-piece in the 30th minute. Not quite the first time they do that, but it was quite ridiculous how they conceded it, because Thomas Souček was quite unmarked on the far post. In the second half, Bruno Fernandes coming in for Van der Beek, who seems to do not know why he was bought. Why he was brought for Manchester United, really. Donny Van der Beek didn't do much. Marcus Rashford coming in for Cavani. Juan Mata coming in for Martial, another disappointment of a player this season, it seems, for Manchester United. And the game was turned around. Paul Pogba finally became a good player. He scored a beautiful goal from an assist from Bruno Fernandes, then Mason Greenwood, of course, from an Alex Telles assist, scored 3 minutes later in the 68th minute. From there, Man United, I think, dominated the game. Rashford made it 3-1 at 78th minute from a beautiful Juan Mata assist. So it was job done, but it needed some heavy artillery, isn't it, with Rashford and Bruno Fernandes starting the game on the bench, really. You would not need, and you will not want to see that kind of ineffectiveness against Leipzig in the Champions League on Tuesday, because if they're that ineffective, even for 45 minutes, Leipzig will pounce on them and they will take advantage. Important result for Man United, gives them a 4th place, albeit momentarily. Of course, albeit momentarily, I think Leicester City still have a game to play, and they may take that spot. Good sport for Man United. I think finally they gotten out of that slump, really started dragging wins. They have 4 wins out of the last 5 games, really, which is very, very interesting for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But now they need to think, of course, about the Leipzig game in the Champions League. Finally, Chelsea, who didn't have the easiest of games against Leeds as well, starting bad, conceding early at the 4th minute. Turned things around. Olivier Giroud, the player in form, 4 against Sevilla in the Champions League. He adds a 5th goal in the week against Leeds, of course, via a Reece James cross. In the second half, it is Chelsea dominating, Chelsea playing the better side. They got the game under their control. Kurt Zouma added a second in the 61st minute, and then, of course, Timo Werner, who missed a couple of sitters really in the game. He's really, I don't know if it's unlucky or if he's not finding his form yet. Assisted Christian Pulisic in the 93rd minute to seal the deal for Chelsea, of course, giving them a momentarily place at the top of the table before the North London derby, of course, between Tottenham and Arsenal. The fixtures of the Premier League on Sunday, of course, there's West Bromwich facing Crystal Palace, Sheffield United hosting Leicester City, who could still climb to the top 4 with a victory over Sheffield. Presumably they do that. Sheffield are really in a bad position. Tottenham derby, of course, the London derby versus Arsenal, the North London derby. Liverpool face Wolves in a very interesting game as well. And on Monday, Brighton host Southampton. Finishing off and rounding off with Italy. Only 3 games were played in Italy. Straightforward results in Italy. Spezia gave Lazio a hard game, really, but not after Lazio scored 2 goals from Ciro Immobile and a beautiful free kick for one of the most underrated players in the game at the moment, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. 2-1 it ends in Spezia for Lazio. A good win after a couple of bad results, especially the loss against Udinese in LaLiga, the draw against Dortmund in the Champions League. In the Juventus derby, of course, in the Turin derby, Juventus left really, really late in a disappointing performance against Torino to win 2-1. Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, started the game but didn't do much. Played with 4-4-2, Pirlo really, with the return of De Ligt, of course, very welcome to that side. They left it to the 77th minute to score the equaliser after Christopher Nkunku made it Nkulu, not Kunku, made it 1-0 on the 9th minute from a set piece from a corner that was weirdly defended, I think, by Juventus. You expect really a mistake every time De Ligt is on the pitch, but not that one really. It was a marking mistake of the top order. Juventus from there, they tried everything, but they only managed a 77th minute goal from Weston McKennie. Before that, Cuadrado had a goal chalked off for offside. Weston McKennie, the American, comes with a save for Juventus, scoring in the 78th minute, and Leonardo Bonucci with the 89th minute, capitalising on a beautiful cross from Cuadrado, who had a brace of assists and a disallowed goal to make it 2-1 for Juventus. Crucial win for the Bianconeri ahead of the game against Barcelona. Gives them a third, or keeps them really, in the 3rd spot of the table with 20 points behind Inter and AC Milan. Speaking of Inter, they had a crucial win of themselves against Bologna. They bossed the game, had a 2-0 lead early on in the first half. Of course, they finished the first half 2-0 up. This was the game of Achraf Hakimi, who had a brace, and Bologna gave them a bit of a headache in the second half, scoring in the 67th minute, but Hakimi made it 3-1 3 minutes later to seal the deal for Inter and keep them very, very close, albeit not by the biggest of margins really. 2 points momentarily, of course, before Milan play on Sunday to Sampdoria. The rest of the fixtures, of course, of Serie A this week: Verona faces Cagliari on Sunday, Parma Benevento, AS Roma hosts Sassuolo in a very, very interesting game to watch, Udinese faces Atalanta, Crotone face Napoli, Sampdoria, as we mentioned, host AC Milan, and Fiorentina on Monday finished the round by hosting Genoa. That was all for the Saturday episode of the podcast. Remember to like, share, comment on the YouTube version, and subscribe, most importantly, to the channel. Keep the updates going, enable notifications. You can listen on Spotify, Google Podcast, or wherever you get the podcasts from, and you can follow us on social media, Pitchside Pod on Instagram and PSP on Twitter. That was your lot for today. I was your boy, the HOD from the PSP, and until I see you tomorrow, goodbye.